So Verstappen was actually on provisional pole in Q3, but he made a mistake in his final lap. The track evolution was really high in Miami. It's a new circuit, it was very dusty offline, and Verstappen just overcooked it at turn 5, took a load of curb, caught an oversteer, and then was jumped by both Ferraris. Leclerc into pole, Sainz into second just, and it meant that Verstappen had to win this one from third on the grid. It's always such a big advantage for a team to have a front row lockout because it gives you real strategic options to cover off the driver that then is third place. The undercut is less of a threat. You can split the strategies to cover off your main rival, and that of course would be Max Verstappen for Ferrari. So Verstappen knows he has to try and split the two Ferraris at the start, and that's exactly what he does then. As the lights go out, Verstappen in third gets a decent start, but actually as we head in towards turn 1, Sainz has done a good job here from second. He's got decent enough traction on the theoretically slightly worse side of the grid, the less grippy side, and he's still ahead of Verstappen into turn 1, but Max has the outside line, and as we come through, he's got a lot of space here as well to try and pull off a move around the outside of Sainz. Sainz at this point looks like he's okay, but now Max is just going to release the brake, and as we go through towards the apex, Sainz has a bit of a problem here as well because he's got his teammate just ahead, and Leclerc had a really good start and he's able to get back towards the racing line because he's not having to defend from anyone, he's able to choose his optimum line. And Sainz then can't really do much about Verstappen at this point because he's got Leclerc just ahead, there's a bit of dirty air coming off his teammate as well, and Verstappen has a clearer line around the outside, can carry the speed, and as we play it through, they both run quite wide, but then Verstappen has the inside now for turn 2, and that's the move done, and it's a really important one that sets up his whole win. And what this one reminded me of was actually the only other time this year that Verstappen has started behind Sainz, and it was in Jeddah. So the two cars we're looking for here are Sainz starting third and Verstappen starting fourth now. You've got Perez on pole and Leclerc in second, and as the lights go out, you've got a similar sort of thing here. The driver in third, this time it's Sainz, gets a better start than the one in second, which is Leclerc, and again he's on the slightly grippier part of the track, and it's a very similar thing. However, look at the trajectory of Leclerc here. He's just pointing towards the outside line, and he's just shutting that space for his teammate to try and attack. And as we get down towards turn 1, Leclerc's putting a little bit of a squeeze on, and then we get to the braking point. There's not really a space for Sainz to go and attack into turn 1. Now they're teammates, I'm sure Sainz wouldn't have been putting everything on the line as Verstappen was in Miami to try and make the move, but nonetheless, Leclerc just makes it a little bit harder for him, and Sainz has to back out of this one into turn 1. But then as we go through, the next threat now for Sainz comes from Verstappen, who's actually had a very ordinary start, also from fourth on the offline part. Goes through the first corner, and now Verstappen is in a similar position to what he was in Miami, really, side by side with Sainz. And again for Sainz, he's got his teammate just in front of him, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. So as they go through turn 2 here, Sainz can't really do anything. He's a little bit boxed in behind his teammate. Verstappen has the wider opening on the outside, can run the speed, and as they come out, this one was actually a little bit clearer cut for Verstappen into the next left-hander, which is exactly how it was in Miami. He had the inside for the next one, and Verstappen's through into third. That was in Jeddah, same result in Miami, and so far has cost Ferrari because Verstappen's ended up winning both of those races by critically clearing Sainz at the start. And on board with Max then, you can see the start's okay. Leclerc's one is brilliant from pole. He's actually had the fastest start of anyone. And Sainz, he's done a good job at this point from the slightly dirtier part of the track. He's still ahead. I just wonder if at this point he can start to put the squeeze on, start to come across a little bit more and stop Verstappen from having such a clean route around the outside. Now maybe legitimately Sainz is then worried about Verstappen just sending one on the inside. The threat of Verstappen fired up in a Red Bull is pretty fierce. So maybe that's what he's just still trying to cover the inside a little bit. But in the end, this is where Max is braking for the first corner. He's got a lot of space to just attack the brakes, and Sainz knows that he can't go in too hot because his teammate's there and he can't afford to lock a brake and tangle with him. So Verstappen could go later on the brakes. Sainz there is completely boxed in behind his teammate, dirty air a little bit as well. And so you can see as they come out the corner, they're both quite wide. They've both gone in a little bit deeper. Leclerc's on the optimum line, on the racing line, because he can be. You can see where Max is. He's gone in way hotter. He's way tighter for turn 2. Doesn't matter though. He has the move done, and it sets up the victory for him. So then Verstappen is now in second. with Leclerc in the lead, and he's quick, Max, in the race. I think Red Bull had the quickest car, and Leclerc, particularly on the mediums, was just starting to struggle in the end of the first 10 laps, and Verstappen senses an opportunity. And here we go on board with Max, down towards the final corner, and he's not yet in a position to make a move. He's got DRS, but the DRS into turn 17 wasn't that effective because it was only activated really late. The activation zone was a long way down the straight. So he can't do anything here, into the braking zone, and he's just too far back. But Leclerc makes a big mistake here. He just gets slightly wide. He's losing the front tyre slightly on his medium tyres as well, and he's just drifted slightly wider from the optimum line, and now he's out towards the slipperier part, and he just can't turn the car and can't get on the gas. So Verstappen gets the car straight, gets on the throttle, and he's this close to the back end of the leader. And Leclerc doesn't really defend it here. He goes to the sort of hovers in the middle of the road, but then starts to meander back to the racing line. And Verstappen has the easiest pass for the lead here that he's had all season against Leclerc. These two have had some brilliant fights, but this time Leclerc made a mistake into turn 17 and then never really tried to defend into turn 1. So Verstappen has the nice line down the inside, and it's a pretty simple pass. I wonder if Leclerc was thinking the long game and thinking he was going to try and pick up the DRS, but the next one, unlike in Bahrain or in Jeddah, there's no DRS on the exit of turn 1. If there was, it might have been sensible, but it was down in towards turn 11, a long way around the lap now. So it didn't work out for him, this. And given overtaking actually looked pretty hard in Miami, we saw Lewis Hamilton struggle to make big inroads on Valtteri Bottas. Fernando Alonso spent pretty much the entire race behind Pierre Gasly until he biffed him off later on. Overtaking between two comparable cars, even if one was slightly quicker, it was not easy. And Leclerc, through a bit of a mistake and through a bit of non-defence, allowed Verstappen to have quite an easy run, and this is for the race lead between probably championship rivals as well. So the Red Bull was very quick. It was the quickest car on the day. Verstappen was brilliant. I did wonder if Leclerc could have maybe just made this one a little bit harder for Verstappen, because in 10 laps then, Max has gone from third on the grid to the race lead by passing both Ferraris on track, which is not the position you want to be in when you're Ferrari with a front row lockout. Here's the move again. And you can just see Leclerc, middle of the road, moves towards the outside, and Verstappen, the simplest of passes on the inside. A comparison here is much later on, where Carlos Sainz was trying to hold on to Sergio Perez after the safety car. Now, there's plenty of differences in this comparison. Perez was on new mediums, there was no DRS available, Sainz was on a very, very old tyre, but Sainz is squirming out of the final corner. At this point, they're actually in a similar position. If anything, Perez is actually better off than Verstappen was. But look how Sainz defends this position. Nearer the end of the race, no DRS, which is a big difference because it means that Perez doesn't have the speed ahead of Sainz into the corner. But Sainz covers right to the white line on the inside, makes Perez go to the outside, and then as we come to the corner, Perez just can't go through. With DRS available here, he might have been slightly ahead. Verstappen was slightly ahead of Leclerc, but I still think if Leclerc was on the inside, he wouldn't have allowed Max to drive around the outside of him at this point. Maybe he'd have been a sitting duck into turn 11. Maybe that's what he thought. But I just thought maybe he could have fought on a little bit harder. As it was, he tried to put the pressure on later on after the safety car as well, Charles, to try and get back towards Max and take the fight to him. It was a nice battle for the win. The safety car obviously really spiced it up towards the end. But Verstappen, relentless, consistent in the end, no mistakes, soaked up the pressure, and he held on to take a very, very deserved win.
He has held on to that lead, and Max Verstappen wins in Miami.
And the race win, Max. What a recovery. Fantastic.
Yes! Oh, what a race lead. That was nice.
That was a look at how Max Verstappen came from third to win the Grand Prix, beating both Ferraris. There was loads of incident further back, many little clashes, including lots of drama for Fernando Alonso. To have a look at that, check it out on F1 TV.